Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Tuesday, April the 29th. And as we like to do once a week, we'll be chatting with our good friend Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. Bill, welcome. It's always a great pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Silvio. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I want to begin with the Attorney General of New York, who, as I remember a couple of years ago, was trying to go after then former President Trump over fraud. But now she seems to be having a few of her own problems over fraud. You know, people are coming up with all these accusations against her. And again, they're allegations, hasn't been proven, but they look pretty strong, Bill.
They do, and look, she's a bit of a phony. She runs on the Democratic ticket, and then there are some other parties that support her, like the Working People's Party, whose real hero is Joseph Stalin. I mean, she's a real lefty, and she is in political bed with this guy Bragg, who was the district attorney of Manhattan, and who was the one who harassed President Trump for years, and they make quite a team. Uh, Now the shoe is on the other foot, and the Attorney General, Letitia James, is being charged informally. I don't think there are any legal charges against her yet, with aspects of fraud. I think it is New York after all, and I think the press will try to protect her, and as they sometimes do with their favorites. She is, after all, a woman of color, and that means automatic protection. As Attorney General, I am not a lawyer. I don't know how she is regarded. I think she's regarded as fair, but once again, she has all those uh, tickets checked as a Democratic candidate for governor of New York.
Right.
So and I think that's what she wants, and she might get it.
Right. And she, well, of course, she's with the People's or the Worker People
Work,
Party. Yeah,
working People's
the
Party.
working. How can you be against the Working People Party? I
Of
mean, that's
course,
such a great name,
it is a great name,
Yeah.
and it was, and and you go into their headquarters, and there are pictures of Lenin, and not really, but figuratively, they're a real bunch of lefties, and they're kind of left over from the old days of
Right.
the party. Uh, I don't know what she's done as Attorney General. I know that when Trump was on trial, she would come and sit in the courtroom every day, which I don't think is the job of the Attorney
Hmm.
General. But let's see what it's the old. Let's see what happens. You cannot beat somebody with nobody,
Right.
and the Republicans are showing the usual life that they show in a New York election. I mean, they might actually, buy a little spot in the newspaper for an ad, probably on the obituary page.
Well, we hope that they take advantage of the opportunity. I mean, there are some really good Republicans this year who I think could win in New York. One is this Representative
Stefanik.
Stefanik, yeah, and the other one, someone who's become a favorite of mine, and that's Lee Zeldin, who I really think would be one. Those two people should be running for something
Yeah, I
in
agree.
26. I'm not
I agree.
saying governor or senator, whatever they're running for, but
Well,
they should be running because they're really good people.
they are. They're all good people, and I'd love to see Lee Zeldin as governor of New York. He came very close
He
the
did.
last time in a very uh, in a state where the election should have been an easy one, but the reality is that New York is not really yet a state that is turning.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the brink of it. You
Right.
feel that all it will take is one atomic explosion, for example, for somebody to say, things aren't really very good. But
Right.
who will say that? I don't know. I mean, New York politics is so bad that people don't vote because they don't think that there's any reason to.
Right. No, I know, and because it's just like California, you keep saying how much worse can it get
That's right.
before people wake up. Apparently, there's something going on in California. I mean, there is some. The Republicans out there are showing some life. I certainly hope so. And of course, the mayor, former governor, is now running for mayor, Cuomo. Now he's in a primary against the current mayor, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
He
And
was. I mean,
but the
usually
current
you
mayor
don't.
has threatened to run as an independent, right?
That is exactly right, which would probably be a very good move. I don't know if it will help him a lot, but it won't hurt him. And if you run as an independent, you don't have to run in a primary.
Right, and that's where you were talking about good luck. I mean, there's always luck in these things, and that's where I see somebody like a Lee Zeldin, for example,
That's right.
step in because he doesn't have to win 50% of the vote. He could actually come in with a plurality, just get the 46 or whatever percent Republican, and let these two battle it out. So that's the kind of opportunity I'm hoping that somebody like Lee Zeldin would take. I think the change is needed there,
Well,
and
it,
these two
it,
guys,
it's needed beyond needed. I
right,
mean, it's. I mean, this is a state. If it would disappear tomorrow, nobody would know it was gone.
right.
Yeah.
Well, except they miss the Yankees, but
Yes.
but so they figure they get the Yankees out before the everything. They would get the Yankees out of New York and move them to Tampa, and then let the state collapse. But anyway, Bill, big story that we got into last week, and I know you've been focusing on this quite a bit at Urgent Agenda, is these talks between Iran and the U.S. They seem to be moving. I know last week you had some concerns about it.
Yep.
I
Still
share
do.
your concerns,
Yep.
but at the same time, it it seems like Trump, as we mentioned last time, Trump has drawn the line, and if he doesn't come through with that, that could really hurt his credibility. So he's drawn the line that they cannot have a nuclear bomb, and so I'm going to give Trump the benefit of the doubt on that, Bill.
Well, he has said if we do not have an agreement that will eliminate the Iranian nuclear program and the equipment and all the stuff that goes with it, then he will consider a harsher action, which would either mean military action, uh, either a military action, or it could be other actions
Right,
similar to it, blockades, for example, uh, uh, sanctions, something that will hurt their economy, something that will hurt their oil industry. It could be, sealing up their ports. Uh, I mean, there are many things, and it also can be a situation where he gets on the air and says, "We have an agreement that will avoid war, where
hmm,
our boys do not have to get involved in combat." It is not a perfect agreement, but it can be perfected as it goes along. So go out and do your thing, and then when they look at the fine print, they find out it's not very much different from the 2015 agreement, the original agreement with Iran that was so bad that when Obama wanted to present it to the Senate as a treaty, he didn't have enough support, even in his
right,
own party, and so he made it an executive agreement. And that's what people are afraid of.
right.
Uh, that we are going to be that we're going to be outmaneuvered by the Iranian negotiators, who usually are very good, and that he's going to be beaten, and it will be obvious that he's been beaten, and that may have a terrible, terrible effect.
Well, it
But
would with me. That
yes,
would have an effect with me because I think he's got a lot. You know, Iran has to be stopped. To me, that this is not a negotiable point. You have to, that I'm not saying that I don't want to see U.S. troops go into Iran. I'm not there yet, but I do think that they have to know that if that we are willing to take out their entire um, nuclear capacity,
yes,
including their navy or whatever, that they will pay a very harsh price. And they have to know that, Bill, because if they don't know that, or if they don't fear that, then you may see a repeat of 2015. But I also think, Bill, not to criticize former President Obama, but I have a feeling that the Iranians know they're negotiating with somebody different.
yes.
Uh,
I think they do know that, but I think that knowledge may not be used effectively. I mean, knowing something and acting on it are obviously two different things. They may feel very emboldened by by this moment, because they may say to themselves, "Look, they've had all this time to attack us, and they haven't, because they're afraid of us, and we can get what we want here." I don't know. I don't. It's impossible to read minds. But if he really fails on this, like trying to present an agreement that looks like the 2015 agreement,
Right.
I think that could really finish him in foreign policy and finish him as a man who was this superb negotiator. And I think that could really wreck his administration.
No, I agree with you there. I agree with you there. I'm optimistic that that's not going to happen, but I agree with you that he can. This cannot be that line that Barack Obama drew on the sand. Remember that line over Syria? Was it?
On the red line in
Yeah,
Syria, yes.
yeah. You cannot have a repeat of that, Bill.
That's exactly right, especially with a man who brags about what kind of a negotiator he is.
No, I agree. I think I'm with you 100% on that. That's why I'm optimistic. Hopefully President Trump realizes that.
Well, I hope so too. I think what we're seeing before us, and I'll write something about this later at Urgent Agenda, is that we're seeing that he's no longer claiming to be invincible. I mean, when he came into office, he actually said he would end the Ukraine war in one day. Now he says, "Now I was just kidding." Well, that's not something you kid about. It
No,
really isn't. It's a war, and so far he's kind of struck out in foreign policy. He can't really point to one victory that actually has changed anything. And of course, my feeling is he got started very badly in his first week of this presidency when he started talking about Greenland and how much he wanted Canada to be a part of the United. These are things he never even mentioned in the
right.
campaign. And what people want, and what obviously, and I agree with some of the other pundits, what they must have in the next 30 days or so is a tax break. And it
Hmm.
has to be something where the check will be sent directly to the taxpayer, not one of these things. Well, it's in reserve, and we're going to credit your account
Right,
over a period of years. They have to. What an American has to see now from a president who has pledged so much is a signed check ready to be deposited,
right,
and that's just to pay their bills or to pay their car payments. They want advances, and they want actions that affect them personally. And
right.
if he can't deliver on that, it's going to be really bad news for him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think there has to be some results here, especially on the economy, because that is the number one issue. Although he's had a lot of other success with the border and stuff like that, it's kind of funny. He's been so successful in the border that nobody talks about it.
well, that,
Is,
well
is, isn't that funny how that works?
Oh, absolutely. Well, the press will not talk about it. I mean, this is their way of controlling things. The example I like to use is back in 2008 when Barack Obama ran for the first time and was successful. He said, "I'm going to fundamentally change America." I don't recall a single question from the press that would go like, "Well, exactly what is it you're going to do?" And that's catastrophic. That's catastrophic journalism. It's dishonest journalism. They didn't want to get in the way of his being the first black president, and so we never found out what he was going to do. And then when he became president, maybe a few people woke up to the fact that he's a true leftist. Many people didn't.
Right.
The press sold us the line that this was such a great racial breakthrough that we shouldn't ask too many questions.
Yeah, everything was about his skin color. That's for sure.
Yes, everything.
And nothing was really about the man, or even for that matter, how prepared he was. I mean, he had no experience in anything, and everything was about, well, we have to have a black president because this is how we show the world that we're not a racist country anymore.
That's
Okay,
right.
all right, I'll buy that to a point, but this was not a man who I thought was prepared for the presidency. Now, you mentioned the media. The media seems to be on a I'm not sure what to call it, Bill, but all of a sudden everybody's writing a book about Biden. And the other
Yes,
night at the media
that's
dinner,
right.
whatever that is, the journalist dinner or whatever, You actually had one guy got up and say, I think we have to take responsibility. I'm paraphrasing. You got to take
Yes,
responsibility for the fact that we didn't tell you this story. And I have to look, when I saw that clip, I started to laugh because I said to myself, oh no, then they started saying you have to be careful with the White House because every White House, regardless of party, is going to conceal things from you, as if as if this White House was concealing anything. Everybody knew.
of
All,
course.
all you have to do is go back to 2020. They stuck the guy in the basement during the campaign, and then he would come out once in a while, and they show him a piece of paper to read. And I'm trying to be respectful because it is the presidency, okay? And I don't like to
Yes,
take cheap shots at the presidency, but I think the media is going to need a lot more than, well, we didn't see that one coming. No, I think they're going to have to say, folks, we saw it coming and we took a strike three or
that's right.
something like that, something
And
like
they
that, Bill.
and they're going to have to admit, look, this business of pretending that they're neutral has first of all, nobody believes it anymore, but I think it has done so much harm to the country, not just to the press, but to the country itself. Because when you have a free, if a free press can save a country, it can also destroy it. And what you have now is a press that is really out of control and not fulfilling the whole notion of what a free press should be.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And the consequence, Bill, we've talked about this before when you look at the ratings, but now there's an even harsher consequence. The latest Gallup has the media at like 30%,
That's right. That's
which
right.
is really scary. I mean, when you look at and you say 30% of the American people believe that I don't know, or have confidence in you. I guess
That's right.
that's what they're saying. I mean, that's like saying 30% of the people think that the airplane is going to take off on time,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
or 30% of the people think the tomatoes they buy at wherever are actually you know are not old and 6 months old or something like that, or that the meat that they buy at the meat section is still for sale. I mean, it's still suitable. I mean, it is really a damning indictment, but one they've earned. I don't,
Absolutely.
they can blame Trump all they want, but they've earned this. They've earned this, not just with the cover up of his story, but the Hunter laptop, those intelligence officers who signed that letter, and nobody in the media even wanted to ask who they were.
Yes.
So I think they've earned it, Bill. And now you know the media better than I do, but I know in the business world that when you lose your image or you lose your brand, it takes a lot to get
Oh
it
yeah. Oh
back, if you
sure.
ever get it back at all. Now I don't know if it was the same way with the media, Bill.
It's tough. There have been some newspapers and some news organizations that have gone down the drain and have not been able to come back fully. The Chicago Tribune being a perfect example. Chicago Tribune has made strides over the years to live down an era when it would have under its name the world's greatest newspaper, and was just a kind of a cranky right wing attempt at journalism, which was laughed at. And then later they realized that we can't go on like this. It had to do with the families that actually ran the paper, and they've never completely recovered. And very often a newspaper makes no attempt to recover; it just stops publishing. And we used to have 7 daily newspapers in New York, and today we have 3. So it is very, very difficult to get back. You can come back from a financial crisis, but you cannot come back from a moral crisis because, unless you have a completely new crew that is at it. And I've never seen a paper come back from that.
Well, I think CNN is having the same problem
Yes.
because they're trying to change their image, but I don't think they can, Bill, until they put different faces. And I'm not picking on anybody in particular, but they've had the same faces now for several. I mean, new shows they have on, and nothing seems to click. And I don't think it's necessarily the quality of, let's say, Tapper, or the quality of the other guy, or that lady Collins who does the show at night. I'm sure they're pretty good people or pretty good journalists. it's simply the brand. When you think of CNN, you immediately think, oh, they're just going to tell me how bad Trump is.
Exactly right, and that's exactly the way I feel about it. Sometimes I will switch from Fox to CNN, and there are those same people sitting around a table telling us how bad Trump is, and it's the worst thing that ever happened to the world, and he's a Nazi, and we have an obligation to tell you these things. You don't really get any news. What CNN can use is, first of all, a good morning program that is filled with news and filled with important news. You know, some you turn to CNN in the morning, and I check all the big organizations, and you hope that at least when they open their mouth, something will come out. And then you find President Trump dropped a valuable vase at the White House today. There is talk about him being forced to pay for it.
Right.
This reflects a lot on what people say about him. Is he neurotic? Does he have a mental problem? We
Right.
have Dr. Jigla Blibet today, who has studied this matter, and he, based on his years of working as a veterinarian, he will tell us, and that's what it's become. I mean,
Right.
they have some good people. They have some good foreign correspondents, but you just get the feeling that the word is out there. We are the anti-Trump network. Get with the program.
Yeah, and it's not helping them. That's the problem, as
No.
far as ratings and as far as credibility. But I thought it was hilarious. I don't know whether it was CNN or one of them was talking about how President Trump was disrespectful at the funeral because you wore a blue suit
Yes.
and a blue tie, as if a blue suit and a blue tie is somehow improper. Um,
Yes. He
eh,
was wearing a very dark blue suit,
okay,
and you can wear anything you want actually, but it showed disrespect. Well, it's. I don't think it did. I think
no, I
he
don't.
actually was dressed in a very dignified way.
Sure,
His wife is Catholic, and
sure,
he behaved in other ways, perfectly well. He kind of left quickly because I think he saw there was nothing to be done after the funeral that could
right,
be of any value to negotiations. Came back to the United States, and now we have many negotiations going on at the same time, which is something I find uneasy because it means that the State Department's plate is a little too full. The Iran negotiations, they keep on telling us they're going well. Well, as far as I'm concerned, when you tell me that your negotiation with one of the world's worst dictators is going well, it scares me.
right.
Because then I don't get any sense that the Iranians are giving up anything.
Well, as we mentioned before, this is a big one for President Trump. He has
Oh,
to
sure.
deliver on this
Yep.
one, no question, no question about it. He has to deliver. But there was all the commotion about the way he was dressed, and then in a few minutes later, President Biden shows up, and he's also wearing a blue suit and a
Yes.
blue tie, and I guess that ended the controversy. When, but it just seems to me. I mean, I thought President Trump was respectful when he was there.
Yes.
It is a funeral. Another thing too that we have got to account for, and that is that the time change. I mean, at one point, I guess somebody said he was like napping. Well, I don't know how many people could go from Washington to Rome from a couple like one day to the other and not feel a bit overwhelmed, Bill. I mean,
Yes.
it's a lot of flowers and
That's right. Even young people who travel
sure,
internationally will plop down on a bed as soon as they get to the new city and sleep for a long time.
sure. So I just thought but they're just making the point that we were making a minute ago. They're just picky. They're just being picky with President Trump, and they're looking for things to criticize. They're not, like you said, being serious about let's have the conversation about the Iran U.S. talks. That's a serious point. Let's talk about that. Or no, they're just picking little things here and there just to criticize him. And I think those days for CNN are gone, Bill. I really do. I think if that's their comeback strategy, good luck with that because I don't see
Yes.
it working.
I don't see it working either. I don't know how a network can operate like that over a number of years and get back its credibility. And let's be frank about it. CNN began as a network on the left. It was the first of the major television cable news operations, and the first big project they did was a left wing view of the Vietnam War. And we should have known then. It was begun by Ted Turner, who later married Jane Fonda, which should tell us something.
Right.
Uh, and uh, it's always had that slant. I
Right.
think that
But
that
don't you think, Bill? Forgive me for interrupting you, but don't you think that you can have that slant and still be serious? Because I thought CNN was pretty good actually during the first Gulf War.
yeah
That it was really the American network that it really took. I mean, I watched it during the first Gulf War, and I was pretty impressed with it. They had all these correspondents, and I thought they did a decent job. Something happened to them uh, with Trump, as so many others, and that's where I think they just went off the rail, Bill.
yes, and when you look when CNN was founded, which was in the early 1980s, uh, the educational system which supplies them with their young people has gotten worse and worse and worse. And I
Hmm.
think that has played a big role in the downfall of many news organizations. You hear it, after all, from employers in other areas. You get in these kids, they don't want to work. They think that their job is to tell the older people how terrible they are. And they're getting this from a bunch of leftovers from the 1960s who are teaching at our universities.
Right, exactly. Well, speaking of the left, they had a pretty good day up in Canada. The Liberals won up there, and
Yep.
I was listening to a podcast earlier today. A Canadian expert. There's always experts on days like these, and he was saying basically two things. He said it was all about Trump. That the Canadian people just wanted to tell the world how much they despise Trump, how much they hate
Mm.
him. Uh, and and I'm willing to cut him a little slack on that. I mean, when you're talking about the 51st state and stuff like that, probably not I never thought that was a smart thing to do. By the way, calling Canada the 51st state.
Very poor thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a unnecessary, you know, it's an unnecessary insult.
Yes.
Or as my mother would have said, if you have nothing to say, don't say anything.
That's right. Well, I think what it is the journalistic equivalent of an unforced error.
It was. It was. This was without a question that. But this Canadian expert was saying, okay, now that we got Trump out of our system, what are we going to do? Because Carney comes in with a minority government. He's not exactly charisma on wheels.
No.
And I mean, this expert was, and I'll send you the videotape. It was very interesting. He was saying that he comes in with a minority government, which means there's a lot of things he's not going to be able to do without cutting deals. And this expert was saying something very interesting that I've heard from Canadians living in Texas, and that is that their economy is not growing, that they have a terrible productivity problem
Yes.
because of their taxes. Basically, their taxes are too high, too many regulations. That the Europeans are, I mean, the Canadians are more like a European when
Yes.
it comes to the economy.
Absolutely. They're left wing.
Yes, but that's okay. I guess they can be that way if they want to. But I don't see a lot of European economies creating jobs. Or
No. They have some very good companies, and
sure.
they certainly do some very good research. But any uh, nation that picks socialism as its system is immediately in a stranglehold
Hmm.
because they quickly find out it's not about the production, it's not about fairness, it's about an ideology,
Right.
and everything has to be done according to that ideology, and that's where Canada went. The Trudeau's were, kind of disgraceful. And remember, during the Vietnam War, they taunted us constantly. They would take in American deserters. and on a humanitarian basis. I mean, you don't do that to a close ally. So Canada is not, is not this perfect nation that became imperfect. It's always been an imperfect nation, and during World War II, they would not. I don't think they took one refugee from Europe, and then they present themselves as a country that has a lot to teach us. I don't know what they can teach us. Tell me.
I'm kind of at a loss. Other than playing hockey, they're very good at
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
They're wonderful hockey players, and I love their hockey players. But they, to me, it's a nation that they've gone too European when it comes to socialism, and they've gotten used to the fact that they're defended by the United States. I mean, their their whole welfare state is financed by the fact that they don't have to defend themselves, Bill.
Well, that's exactly what Trump was talking about
Yeah,
when he came to office. I mean, they not only don't pay their fair share, they know that they will be defended by the United States.
right.
Not and let's not forget the fact that Alaska is very hard to defend. It's at the top of Canada. I don't think that we really know whether they would help us defend Alaska at all. So it's I think Trump's grudges are correct, but there's a time and a place.
Right.
His timing is never very good,
No,
and
that's his problem
yes,
sometimes. Yes.
and he rubs it in. And I think that maybe now he'll appoint a really top ambassador to Canada and a prestigious one, and let's see if we can get back online. On the other hand, many of the things that Trump says are absolutely true, that we have been used, but we can negotiate those things without making insulting remarks.
Right. And if we've been used, it's our fault.
Yes.
That's the other thing too. And now with Canada, the other big issue too, Bill, that keeps coming up is now that Carney has won,
Yes.
what's going to happen with Alberta? Because Alberta is sort of the rebel in the family, and there's been talk of not necessarily joining the United States, but becoming an independent country. They've got all the oil
Yes.
in Canada. I mean, they can, they could turn into a gas station. If they became an independent country, they could be the world's gas station. They could
Yes.
just be pumping oil, ships all over all day long. There's so much oil there. And they apparently have a pretty conservative population as well. So, these so-called Canadian experts are speculating that Carney's going to be under a lot of pressure to cut a deal or to move to the center more, because the conservatives did extremely well in the West,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's where that's in the western areas, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. I always miss. That's a tough one.
Yeah, let's see. What is it? Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan
Yes.
and Alberta. Those three. Now British Columbia is more liberal, I guess, but those three are really conservative, and politically, that's where the party is. It's sort of like in the United States, where the party is, the conservatives are more in inside the country. But we'll see how it goes. But I can't wait for the first meeting between Prime Minister Carney and President Trump. I'm sure that it'll be at least superficially it'll be courteous. But I can't wait for the two of them to get into that little press conference that they have, sitting next to each other, and and they're answering questions from the media. And we may have a repeat of Zelensky with Trump.
Yes, that could happen. I mean,
Yeah,
we don't know what's in Putin's mind. We really don't. I
right.
think that his dream is to take Trump to the cleaners.
Yeah, well,
To show that he is the great negotiator.
but he's got problems too, Bill. He's
Oh, of
got
course.
some serious problems as well. But let me close with another topic, Bill. Bring up one more topic here, and that's these immigration raids and these judges who apparently. I mean, it's hard to believe that a judge would be hiding a member, or allegedly hiding a member of a gang.
Yeah.
And then the other judge in Milwaukee was, I guess, protecting a person from ICE. That is outrageous. I don't understand how any Democrat can defend that.
Well, they do because they in order to make any progress today in the Democratic Party, you must be given the seal of approval, or at least half a seal of approval, by the so-called progressives, who are just modern day Marxists. They really are. And the AOCs of the world and some of the others in the squad. And if you don't get their seal of approval, you're not going to be the nominee. And
Right.
that the Democratic Party has fundamentally destroyed itself.
Yes, I agree with you, and they may have the one person who wants to take advantage of all of this and seems to have all the money in the world to do it is the governor of Illinois. So
Yes,
we
Pritzker.
Pritzker, who is he's
He's,
become like Trump critic number one, and
yes,
he's out there. He's got all the money in the world, Bill, and as you know, that's pretty important in a primary.
I
So
know. And I went to the University of Chicago, and a lot of things were named for Pritzker.
oh, okay, it's
It's a hotel family.
right, the Hyatt, I think, and very
Yes,
wealthy family. So that's great. I mean, that's great for them that they've accumulated all their wealth. But he's got the money to do it. He doesn't even have to. He's a little bit like Bloomberg. He can finance his own primary,
exactly. And I think
and
that's the intent.
yeah, and he might just get away with it. But I was just thinking that you now have another candidate from a state that people are fleeing from running for president.
Yep, that's exactly that, and that's a very good point. That's the first thing that will be brought up. If he's such a good governor, how come you can't get a moving van in Illinois because everyone is leaving? And he's not exactly the most attractive person. I mean, he's a what's his campaign slogan gonna be? Uh, Elect me. I'm 200
Well,
pounds overweight, and everybody's leaving my state.
right. Well, he
Give
also
me a
has
job.
he he's also has the last name that rhymes with a lot of bad words.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's true. And
so
that'll
I don't
come
even
out.
want to I don't even want to touch that
We
one.
don't
But
we don't we don't go there.
no, we don't go there. But there's going to be all kinds of jokes about that because that's just the way people are. But as far as I know, I mean, he was reelected, wasn't he, recently?
Yes.
And I guess the people there like him, but the state is not doing well. That's all that I look at.
No, it's not. In fact, in that whole group of states there, in the upper Midwest, I think they probably have the worst financial record.
They do, and I guess Minnesota is not far behind under their wonderful governor too. They're not doing very well up there. But Chicago is such a shame because it should be one of the great cities. Well, it was at one time one of the great
Yes.
cities in the world.
Yes.
In Illinois, at one time, was a great producer of everything, manufacturer
Yes.
of
And
everything. I mean,
and it produced Abraham Lincoln.
that as well. And you just had at one time. I mean, I can remember all the great companies associated with Illinois.
Yes.
All these great manufacturing companies that were associated there. The airport, O'Hare, right? O'Hare Field is a fantastic airport. Was a great, point of connection if you were flying from coast to coast. I mean, there was so much charm. I remember. I think I may have told you the story when we first came to the United States. We went down to Chicago a few times to do some shopping at a Cuban store there.
Yes.
And we would go there with my parents. The five of us, my mom, my dad, myself, brother, and sister, and we drive down to Chicago and go to the Cuban store. And my parents were so impressed with how clean and how well organized the city was.
Yes.
And it's not that way anymore, Bill.
No, those were the days of the mural Mayor Daley, who was he was a political boss. Let's put it that way. Nobody ever looked at Chicago as a shining picture of democracy. And I was working in Chicago politics for a while when I was a student there. I mean, the city council was not something you looked to form a new constitution. You wouldn't look to them.
But the city ran extremely well. So I don't know,
Yes.
somewhere between what he did in Chicago and perfection or pure democracy, maybe there's a middle ground there.
Yes.
Where we can get our cities to run and but at the same time have more transparency. Well, Bill, thank you as always for your time, and we will do it again next week. And I'm sure we'll have a few more stories. But I'm really interested in that Iran-U.S. talk. I think
That is going to be the key.
that's going to be the key. Yeah, and so I think we'll keep an eye on that one. And thanks for covering that story on Urgent Agenda, Bill.
Thank you for your comments, and I look forward to next week's show.
All right, thank you so much. Our good friend Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. We chat with Bill once a week and try to talk about some of these issues like we did today, the Iran-U.S. talks. Very important, not just for the world, but for President Trump himself, who has invested obviously a lot of his credibility really in that whole thing. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas.